This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris. Today we have a very special guest, Peter Fortunato. Peter's a libertarian and a capitalist. He believes that transactions which you can be proud of result from careful conceived goals and plans followed by purposeful actions and scrupulous documentation. Upon graduating from high school in 1965, Peter went right into real estate business. His motivation was his desire to be self-employed until he could afford to be unemployed. Peter says, everyone who knew me believed I was unemployable, and they were right, and I still am. Peter was excited about being free to build his business and his future. He attended seminars and read at every opportunity. He sought out and learned from many mentors and benefited from the example and counsel of his father, who always encouraged and supported him. Peter finished college with a clientele and an investment portfolio. By 1975, his investment income had eliminated his need for fees from clients to fund his lifestyle. Peter continues to teach and attend real estate investment seminars and meetings regularly. He's respected for his clear and patient explanation of investment concepts and transactions. He's been building, structuring, manipulating, and managing investment transactions and portfolios for more than 45 years. And in 2017, you received the Roney Award, which I consider the top prize in our training industry because we don't give them away. That means somebody's got character for a long time. So Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'm interested in what is your definition of being a capitalist?
A capitalist is a person who is free and enjoys helping other people.
All right, that's very simple. I like that.
It's one of the things I get all the time is the strange people, especially from states like Massachusetts and California, think that somehow capitalism and capitalists have a negative context. And they don't recognize that in a free society, people always give better than they take from other people. And that's what capitalists do all the time. When I do a deal and I give somebody something, whatever it is, they chose without coercion to take that something because they liked it better than what they gave up. And it's that free to help others that makes capitalism such a wonderful thing for all of us to enjoy and to better ourselves with.
What's great about what you just said too is, and someone from my perspective understands it maybe better than most, is when you sit across from somebody, there's 10,000 other transactions and conversations that have occurred that you get to plant into this one. So you're not shooting from the hip. This has been replayed, but you're trying to get specific information from them so you can bombard it with solution. But if you didn't have that experience, there wouldn't be any way to do it.
Well, I think if I didn't care enough to find out what was going on in their life. Warren Harding taught us always seek out the uncomfortable circumstance that is causing that property to be available. And the uncomfortable circumstances, never know walking in what that is.
Right.
Your job is to help them better themselves.
Well, when you get somebody to say that, and I understand what you're talking about, that's accomplished because somehow you have become safe to that person. There's a trust level where they'll actually share the truth with their circumstance. Then you can provide a solution that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I start always by saying, why would you sell a nice house like this? And then I shut up and listen and find out about the fact they just had twins. The doctor said they can't handle the stairs. They want to move back to family up north, whatever it might be.
But that's the path.
Help.
Yeah, without that path, you're shooting in the dark. It's a great way to approach the business, and it's very rewarding. I listened to you. You had a presentation that's on your website. I listened to for quite a while today, and it was great because there's concepts in there that are really important. And one of the things that you talk about is recruiting allies.
Yeah.
So, talk about that concept just a little bit.
Every single time you do anything, you're recruiting an ally. Because if you buy a house from someone, you've just helped them. If you sell a house, to someone, you've helped them. If you rent a house to someone, you've helped them. Those people, if you stay in contact with them, would like to help you as well. And so recruiting those allies is very important. I just borrowed $150,000 from one of my tenants who called me because she had $180,000 in the bank paying her 0.1%.
Right.
And I told her I would double that for her.
That's funny. And you put that in what? In a trust deed of some kind, or just
I went and bought a house. I'm sorry, I bought a house and I refinanced a house. So I paid her 6% interest only for 15 years. So I made that promise.
Right.
I took that 6% money, paid off a 9% note that I owed that had a 10% constant on it. So increased my cash flow in that, and bought a house with $25,000 down and seller carry at 4%, which is producing more cash flow for me and amortizing $200 a month.
I think you might be certainly one of the few people in the country that when I listen to your seminars, I have to re-listen to them because they're simple, but they're complicated. There's a lot to it, and that's a compliment. In other words, and I think that that's what's fun about listening to you, because every time you listen to you, it's different because there's new transactions or there's different thoughts that come into your head that are applicable to today. So you're really one of the best teachers I've ever heard. And it's fun listening to you.
Well, thank you. I tell you, it's important to me because I get such a thrill from the people who come back in the rewards that you feel when you realize you've made a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that concept. When somebody asked me to speak in Florida, they want to do an all-day seminar. I said, I really want to do that, but I'll do half a day if you could get Pete to do the other half. And so we got to teach together, and that was great fun. I hope we get to do that again.
Bruce, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Pete, I was looking at the flyer that you had for last year's presentation that you did at the end of the year. And one of the things that stuck out to me out of all the bullet points that you teach is expand your market by using promises. That was interesting to me. Can you talk about what you mean by that?
Well, when I got out of high school, some of you guys will remember when you had zero net worth. John Job always said, "Do you remember when our net worth was in our gas tank?" And I always tell John, I didn't have a gas tank. I borrowed my dad's. But what happened is my goal when I was still in high school was to get enough assets to fund my lifestyle. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any capital. I didn't have any goods and services to trade, but I could trade promises. And so that's what I did. I promised to pay $500 a month. I promised to pay $100,000 when I sell a house. I promised. So my first house, I bought subject to a first and a second mortgage. I promised to protect the guy's credit and enable him to move to Fort Lauderdale from Boston. The second house was a lady who wanted to do an installment sale. I promised to pay her $1,500 a month. I made a deal this past Thursday where I promised $20,000 when I sell a house and $30,000 cash now. Now I don't have $30,000 cash. Even to this day, at age 75, I still haven't saved that much money up because money is for investing. And so I called a friend whose IRA lent me the money. So that provided the money. So the promise to the IRA got me the cash needed for the deal. The promise to the people got me the house. The promise to rent a nice house to a tenant and their promise to me to pay me rent for the use of that house is going to pay me so I can pay them. And so my houses that were bought primarily with promises. And that's why when I got out of college, I had 20 rentals. Now, not 20 properties, there were 6 properties, but 20 rent incomes coming in, all of them acquired with promises.
And so it's not necessarily like a promise where it's not backed up by a contract or anything like that. It's just, that's your esoteric kind of way of looking at it. Like, my contract is my promise.
Exactly. And the promise is something we can all give. Now, you need to make the people, as Bruce was saying, the people need to feel that they can trust you. But it's not enough to be trusted. You need to be both trustworthy and competent. I had a young woman who was 8, so a young woman whose dad had been reading Richest Man in Babylon to her. One chapter every day as a bedtime story. The individual chapters in Richest Man in Babylon are spectacular.
Absolutely.
And this little girl came to me and she said, Mr. Fortunato, yesterday you were talking about trustworthy and competent. And when my dad was reading, the hero in that took his money and did a joint venture with his friend, the bricklayer, to invest in gemstones. And the bricklayer was completely trustworthy, but just like you said, what did he know about gemstones? Well,
right.
See, that's 8 and they understand that. You just got to talk to people and care about people in order to make a deal.
Yeah, that's very cool. Jim Rohn was my favorite mentor.
Yep.
Did you have a favorite mentor, let's say both in real estate and then outside of real estate?
So very many.
Really?
Yeah, I was blessed. My dad was an extraordinary people person. But when he would talk to people, he was gentler than me. And so when he would say, what can you do in a blue bathroom you can't do in a pink bathroom? The people laughed and still bought a house from him. Uh-huh. They fired me when I said that, when I was trying to presidential vote. But I remember things like watching him when some guys converted some of the downtown buildings in Beverly, Massachusetts into condominiums on the first floor. And they were selling out those little retail spaces. And when we heard about it, my dad said, gee, I think I'll go get a haircut. He went down and got a haircut and came back with a contract where he sold the barber a commercial condo, so the barber was no longer renting. And so that immediacy of taking action and of caring about the people and putting the people together with the benefits was tremendous for me. How important Jack Miller was to me, and Warren Harding and John Sharp, and just extraordinary friends who I've done business with. And those are the allies that developed out of doing business and helping one another. Jimmy Napier used to talk about us doing a co-venture at the free meetings. And what were we co-venturing back in the early 70s was one of us would bring peanut butter, one would bring jelly, the other bring a loaf of bread, and we fed ourselves while we were at the meetings.
It's very special. It is very, very cool. And the number of people that you've impacted, it's been exciting to see, even on the West Coast, and that's one of the reasons why I felt compelled to give you guys that award, because it was equivalent excitement on the West Coast for what you guys shared with people. And that's pretty cool.
It was remarkable.
What's interesting is sometimes the path is very different. I didn't get introduced to real estate investing until one night when I was like 28 years old. It didn't occur to me what that tool was. And I also never took the first real estate seminar I gave. Now that's really a mistake, by the way.
Yes.
That's why I happened to make some of the mistakes I did, because I didn't trust the education world of the real estate. And the reason that was, my brother Dwight used to buy those seminars that were, run to the back of the room type stuff. And I would listen to him once in a while. And I remember saying to him, I said, honestly, I don't think this guy's bought a house in his life, because it's just not how it works, And it made me suspicious until, the first real estate seminar I took. This is funny. And I'm going to talk about this transaction. I had a chance to buy 50 building lots, but I was $2 million shy of the $2 million price tag. So I took a seminar from the gentleman that you just mentioned. It just
Jack Miller?
Jack Miller for options. But it was so far over my head, I had no idea what to do when I left. And I went, oh, heck with it. So anyway, I'll finish that story tomorrow. But
by the way, I have Jack Miller's first options presentation. The booklet from 1977 is 5 pages, including the cover page.
Well, he doesn't need a booklet to go teach for a day. What's funny is, though, he also doesn't have to follow his outline.
And never does.
And never does. And see, that was for me. I was trying to get a boilerplate. What do I take from here to go over there? It was.
Well, if you see over my shoulder, that entire shelf is Jack Miller's options classes.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty cool. Well, together, it's been fun. Well, Jack Fullerton, that's he and I met at a Jim Rohn. We didn't meet, but we were at the same Jim Rohn seminar, oddly enough, and had a big impact. And he was the one that had me first speak at an investment club, and it was the last thing on my list. I mean, honestly, that was an accidental transaction. We had met at his meeting. He had a guy talking about a mobile home, how to do mobile homes, and I had just traded for 6 mobile home lots, and I didn't have a clue. So I went to the club meeting for the first time in my life, and he opened the meeting saying, anybody that says they can buy properties cheap enough to flip them immediately in California is lying. And I thought, wow, that's what I do. And I thought he'd be happy to know that. So anyway, that's how
Jack
we
has
start.
mentioned that to me many times.
It's funny, but I like that there's different paths to where, like, you've always been involved in real estate. I mean, you were a realtor too. I had no patience for that. I was a buyer for a company, and I had to have a license for that, but we bought too many properties, and he says, okay, well, I need you to sell some. So I took one couple out one time in my entire life. 2 kids in the back that were noisy. There were 5 houses that kind of matched what they wanted. And at the end of that, this is a Friday night. She says, okay, when do we do tomorrow? And I said, I don't work on the weekends. If you didn't see what you wanted out of the 5 houses, I don't have it. So they went to their car. They came back and said, we'll take number 4. And that was my close. And I just thought, I don't want to do that anymore. But you took a path where that was actually really beneficial, because you talked about what you learned by putting transactions together by these agents. And that was interesting to me.
The agents in Greater Salem, Massachusetts Board of Realtors, when I went into real estate in 65, they were just extraordinary.
Wow.
Everyone was helpful. Everyone was encouraging. It was amazing, the friends and the allies that I built there.
That's a great word. But when you were learning to put transactions together, and then you made a conversion when you realized that somebody that was going to buy more than one might be your best customer base.
Yeah, my dad was, as I said, a great people person. So people would buy a home from him, and then a generation later, their kids would come back, or they would come back for a smaller home and do it again. And I was 19. I'm saying, I'm not waiting 20 years for the next sale. So I went to investors, because I could do 2 or 3 deals a year with investors who wanted to buy income property.
Now, do you still have your investor? I don't know what the meeting where you're trading things. Do you still have?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's where I made the deal with $20,000 promise and the $30,000 in cash that I didn't have. That was at Exchangers on Thursday.
Yeah, I've got to make it a habit of going to your meetings. I haven't done it.
Last night at Monday night meeting, we've got a waterfront property on a park here, which is just exploding in value, as you can imagine, or in price, as you can imagine. And my son lived there, and he has now moved from it. So we want to trade that property.
What city is it in?
It's in Southeast St. Pete. And we want to trade that property for 3 nice rental houses, because Michael has now moved to a nice house where he's happy, and having the 3 incomes still in good neighborhoods, works for us. That's what we do. We would never take the money and stop.
What's the value of the house?
Well, I thought 600,000 and it turned out 995.
You're only 400 grand off.
Right. Only wrong by 67%, but what the heck?
Last time you looked was about 3 months ago.
Yeah. Well, our tenants, the rents, but I realized that the income, the dollar is being destroyed and it's melting like ice in terms of its buying power. But on the house down by Lassing Park that I was just talking about, Michael rented the 1-bedroom ADU in the back to a gentleman in his 80s for $1,600 a month, and the guy does the lawn. And I don't have a single 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's rented for more than that 1-bedroom, 1-bath house is renting for now, because I'm that far behind the 8 ball. Just have great tenants for a long time. Yeah,
well, that's interesting. Years ago, a long time ago, somebody gave me a break when I was trying to save for a house, and they didn't raise my rent in Orange County for two years, and it was a big deal. And I got to save a little $20 here and there, got up to $500, got to buy a house, and I never forgot that. So for probably the first, 25 years of me having rentals, I never raised rents. I have the same tenants; they were good. I just kept them. And
I don't mind helping them that way, but if they move, I feel I've been betrayed. I want them to stay there at least a lifetime.
At least a lifetime, huh?
Yeah, because I always would say to people when I'm trying to rent a house, I'm looking for a long-term tenant. And just a few years ago, the long-term, short-term difference was people wanted to stay a year while they built the house. They wanted to stay 18 months. And the long-term wanted to stay decades. Today, when I say long-term, they mean more than a weekend because they're all Airbnb people.
Oh, wow.
And let me see, I'm not going near those people.
No, I agree with you. I want to have a relationship, even with the property management company. Now, I think you manage your own properties.
I manage out to 15 miles, and then I hire somebody, or I do a sandwich lease with somebody who will actually travel that far.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've never managed the properties. I've always been very meticulous about getting the right property manager, and I've been very fortunate. But I know that's a big problem if you get the wrong one, especially from a distance. I've had rentals sometimes from California to Florida. If you don't have the right person, that's a total disaster.
Oh yeah, I was at the Bradenton meeting, the lunch meeting in Bradenton, and there was a lady there who had 12 houses. She was retired. And the 12 rental houses were all within 2.5 miles of her home. I was so jealous by the time I left that meeting. It was terrible.
You just want to buy her home and her rental in one shot.
What a portfolio. Gee.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me there was a problem. No, that was good. I'd love for you to tell the story, because I always get a kick. By the way, when you were really young, did you do entrepreneurial things that were unusual?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than a snowstorm when they said, don't send the kids to school because it's too dangerous for them to be out. And I would go out and make $20 in the afternoon shoveling snow. And then I found out that some of my friends and my younger brother would do the shoveling, and I could just collect money.
That's exactly what I wanted to know. Oh my God. When you talk to other people, and I've had the privilege of being interviewed, I decided to ask that question because I was just curious. And almost every time, there's some 6-year-old doing something, you just go, where did that come from? That's unbelievable.
Yeah. My sister at one point had the record for the most Girl Scout cookies sales in Massachusetts or in the county or in the world or something. And that record of hers was broken a couple of years ago. And she was really unhappy that the person who broke it was a young woman who set up a card table and cookie sales outside of a marijuana store that was open.
Oh.
And my sister had to knock on doors to make all those sales, and she felt that this woman took an unfair advantage.
Well, that's a long time to hold a title, though. That's pretty cool. I heard you talk about your kind of an interview with a high school counselor where you said something that upset them. That was when they were.
I speak to schools whenever I find a teacher that's naive enough to invite me.
No, I mean, when you were in high school, you were talking to your counselor, and there was something that you said about, what your goal was.
She asked me about what job I wanted to work towards so that I could have a job when I got out of high school. And I told her I wanted to be unemployed. And she really, truly thought that unemployed meant sitting by the side of the street hoping to be given a handout.
Right.
Rather than unemployed, because I wanted to turn over the responsibility for providing income to me for my lifestyle, to my assets, rather than to my labor and my time.
Did you ever have a normal job?
I was an usher at the Salem Theater in the 9th grade.
Okay.
I wanted to go see the movie, and I might as well get paid.
That's
Bruce, I don't think I've ever told you this, but one of the things, growing up in the neighborhood I grew up with, we were poor. We didn't have money to do stuff. And video games, nobody had a console at their house. We had to go to the store, put a quarter in the video game, and that's how we would play. Well, one day, one of my friends are across the street, and they're using a hammer, and they're pounding nickels into the size of a quarter.
Oh,
and so that's kind of sort of reverse entrepreneurialism, right? So we would get quarters and get 5, nickels for them, and then we would turn them into quarters, and that's how we got to play more video games when we were little kids.
Yeah. Do you know who Ward Hennigan is?
Oh, sure I do.
Okay, well, here's Ward's entrepreneurial. Now, he was left at an orphanage when he was 2.
Yep.
And he made up his mind that he was, he had an encounter with an ant when he was about 8. They went around New York for about a week and had a profound effect on him, because she told him at the end of that, Ward, I'm no longer going to worry about you. You are going to be an amazing man and be very wealthy. And he believed that in every circumstance he ever faced. But when he was a kid, one of the things he did that was entrepreneurial is that he would go on the bus, and there were always last-minute smokers that smoked just something they just lit, and then they tossed it because you couldn't have. So he collected those and put them in little packs and sold the packs of used cigarettes for like $1. I just thought, oh, man. That's why I asked, because I love those stories of, what people thought of doing to create revenue.
Yep. When I speak to the schools, one of the things I always speak to schools, I always say to the kids, do you like money? And they always say yes. And I always say, what do you do to get money? And very sadly, because I've spoken in schools since 1986.
Wow.
Only twice have I had a child say something that didn't involve labor. They mowed lawns, they cleaned the house, they worked. It was just awful. But I had a little boy who was 9, and he said, Mr. Fortunato, I bought a Pepsi machine, a soda machine, and I bought it for $700. I had $200 I had saved, and my mom and dad lent me $500.
Wow.
And we put the soda machine in the laundromat in my dad and mom's trailer park. And every so often, my dad and I go to Sam's Club and buy whatever sodas we can get for 25 cents and put them in the machine, and they sell for 50 cents. And he said, I make $125 every single month without work. That's just wonderful. And then years later, I was in the 3rd grade. I was at a 3rd grade class in New York. And a little girl said, Mr. Fortunato, I make money by promising my brother that if he'll pay me $5, I won't tell our parents what he did. And so she was an extortionist, but at least she didn't work for a living. But those 2 kids, I will never forget as long as I live. Those are just great kids.
Those are very funny stories. Oh, my God.
I wanted to arrange a marriage, but never got it done.
Okay, that's going to do it for part 1 of our interview with Peter Fortunato. Be sure to catch the show next week for part 2. Thanks.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under California DRE License 012-19911, Florida Mortgage Lender License 1577, and NMLS License 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the Hard Money tab.